This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television, sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between. This week, Automan, episodes 8 and 9.
Man, you got trouble. I mean, you got a whole lot of trouble.
Well, if I were you, I wouldn't mess up the best chance you got of getting your friend Chico back in one piece.
Yeah? Well, who's gonna spring him?
Look, I got a friend on that chain gang, too. And I've also got a plan that'll get them both out.
Yeah, well, we have a few plans of our own. We're gonna blow that place to hell and gone.
You go in shooting, and all of you, including Chico, are gonna wind up dead. You follow me, and you won't have to fire a shot.
Now, why would anybody want to follow you?
Rules of the road. The best biker always leads the others.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast about dirty cops and the mob in the 1980s. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
You don't need to be human to want to get down and boogie.
Is that true? Do you think?
Actually, I disagree. I think you need to be human to want to get down and boogie.
Well, we're joined by a guest who may have an opinion on when you should get down and boogie. Joining us today is Steve from the Androids and Assets podcast. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. But can I say, Luke, Jordan, you have broken me. I am a shell.
Because of Automan?
Who I used to. I've been attempting to extract meaning from Automan.
Can I assume you're so upset because you see how awesome Automan is and you realize you will never achieve his greatness because he's an 11 out of 10?
Yes, I'm deeply jealous of Automan.
Oh, dear. Well, I'm sorry that this got into your brain, but it's not going to leave now. Once Automan's there, he's there for life.
It's in there, but I've been on a journey these past few days.
Well, before we get into Automan, usually when we have a new guest, we like to find out kind of what their history with science fiction TV is. Since you run a sci-fi podcast looking at, amongst other things, DS9, but also a few books and things, I assume you have a sci-fi background.
Yeah, I mean, watch Star Trek on my dad's lap as a kid, and
that was the introduction.
Yeah. I remember sitting on my dad's lap during the opening to TNG, and he would when the ship flew at the screen in the opening bit there, we'd duck out of the way,
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, get out. Yeah, so a lot of fond memories of Star Trek and
you know what I like?
fiction.
That's your memory. My memory is of watching Star Trek and my dad coming to the room and saying, "None of this is real." That's what I remember my dad telling me.
Different parenting styles. Oh,
yeah.
Dear. Well, I'm going to assume, Steve, going into this, you had never heard of Automan before.
Part of me, as I was watching it, was like, "Oh, this feels familiar," but I don't know if it's just it's just that. If it's the Glenn Larson experience.
Well, that was my next
getting.
question. Are you? Yeah. You're aware of Glenn Larson?
Oh yeah, Magnum. My mother-in-law is rewatching Magnum PI right now. So that's Glenn Larson, right? Is he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but just that whole style and feel.
I've never seen Magnum PI. Does Magnum PI feel like Automan?
I mean, I don't know if this is just filming conventions at the time, right? Or if it's I don't know what's Glenn Larson and what's just late 70s, early 80s. I can't disentangle. But the thing where the static camera following the cars.
Right.
There's you talk about in the pilot episode, talk about the plane lands and the cars drive up and the people get out of the car, people get out. There's a lot of that in Magnum PI, which is man gets in a car.
And Magnum PI is always sticking his finger into an electric socket, right?
Yeah. Yes, he's all and orgasming.
Yeah, right. Good. So it's very similar.
Yeah.
Well, let's not delay too long, I guess. Shall we get into these episodes, you guys?
Yeah, I'm excited to do some dirt biking.
Here is the IMDb summary for Episode 8, A Renegade Run. Crooked Sheriff Horton tries to force biker Chico Fuentes to sign over half his land so the sheriff can run illegal immigrants over the border. Fuentes is put in jail and forced into manual labor. Automan and a motorcycle gang have to come to the rescue.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, we know that Chico is kind of a member of the lamest motorbike gang ever, and he dresses like Bruce Springsteen circa 1984. And then Sheriff Horton. Luke, did you recognize who that was?
I did not.
So it's Richard Lynch, who's in a bunch of movies in the 70s, like the 7-Ups, and he also played, do you remember that two-parter in TNG where Picard has to pretend he's like a smuggler or something, and the guy's name is Baron, and he's like, it's like, is Picard going to become a bad guy? He's in that, but more importantly, he was Commander Xavier in Galactica 1980, another Glenn A. Larson show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You don't recognize his weird-looking face?
No recollection. But we do get to meet him right away here, because how this starts is old Chico is in a classic motorcycle v cop chase. He's like jumping over bridges. It's a real Dukes of Hazzard style chase. And this Sheriff Horton finally pulls him over with a bunch of deputies with shotguns, and they basically are insisting that Chico sign over like half his dead parents' land to the sheriff, or they'll like blow him away in the middle of the street, which Chico's fine with. But the sheriff then threatens to go after his sister if he doesn't sign, and Chico kind of gives in at that point. And the sheriff's relationship to Chico's sister for the rest of the episode is going to be very disturbing.
Yeah, it's a little bit rapey, but I think even, we're going to get into this.
A little bit?
A little bit rapey. We're going to get into this as we go, but I don't know if the sheriff's overall plan makes a lot of sense. Doesn't it seem like there's a lot easier ways of accomplishing what he's trying to accomplish?
As far as I can tell, his plan is to get free home renovation labor.
Yeah.
Like, is he committing, like, multiple felonies just to get, like, a breakfast nook?
That's basically it.
Yeah.
And my big question, because this is the whole jumping off point, is, like, he wants this Fuentes land, and he's going to, like, in the next scene, one of his sheriffs, like, will go to L.A. and, like, threaten the sister and smack her around until she also signs her half away. I have no idea what he's doing with their land. It never comes back up. I don't know why he wants it, what he's doing with it.
That's the point that seems like an extra step. So he needs their land because their land is on the border, and he is bringing illegal immigrants across the border through their land secretly so that he can make them work. That's the point. But it's like, you don't need to own the land to bring them across the border. But apparently he thinks he wants to as close to legitimately purchase this land as possible so that he could do something illegal.
A classic Automan trait, though, I guess. Just like the most convoluted schemes possible to get to the like final point. How Automan comes into this, though, is Wally apparently used to go to university or college with Terry Fuentes, the sister. Mm-hmm. And they're planning to get back together, and like she maybe had some hand in the creation of Automan. It's unclear. But Wally has planned it on Automan's reprogramming day, and he's none too happy about it.
I like, though, that they have, on this show, they have the captain character, they have the Jack character, the lieutenant, they have Roxanne, they have Wally and Automan. So it's a pretty decent-sized cast of 5 main characters. But only Wally and Automan ever really get anything to do. So every episode, there has to be an old friend of Wally's that shows up to push the plot forward. And it's like, you have all these other characters you could use. It's like, no, this time it's Terry Fuentes. Last time it was his buddy that was in cop school. And then before that, it was a lady who was married to someone's dad. It's like, ugh, enough. Just use poor Roxanne. She's just walking around the office with files.
I mean, you're not wrong. Roxanne gets very little to do, and she'll get even less in this episode because basically Wally meets up with Terry. She explains that she got beat up and someone's after her land, and Wally's like, all right, well, why don't I come to Arizona with you to help you sort it out? Maybe if I talk to them, like, there's a real idea in this episode that, like, if I talk to them cop to cop, certainly they'll listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if that's unreasonable.
I mean, it doesn't work, but I can see, I guess, where it's coming from.
You can see the Brotherhood of Police is a thing.
It's true. I'm not in Bishop, Arizona, apparently.
Oh yeah, the idea of arresting an LAPD officer seems crazy. Like, especially if you're again trying to hide this aforementioned criminal syndicate.
It is true. They seem the sheriff seems very high up on his power. Nobody's gonna get in his way. I do like, though, because so Wally's like, I'm going to Arizona this weekend, and Automan's so excited to go with him. And then when he's like, Automan, you're not invited, Automan like is just pouting the entire time. And he says, if you don't hear from me by Monday, you can come to Arizona. So this kind of buys us a little time to get Wally in trouble, which he does, as we've mentioned. He goes to Arizona, tries to talk to the cop, not interested in talking to him. Cop then pulls him over and finds, they plant drugs in his car. And it's just like, you're now both arrested and you're going to work on my manual. Like, you're arrested. You're not convicted. But once you're arrested, you have to go work on my, I guess, chain gang that rebuilds my house.
And there's clearly a lot of work that needs to be done on this house because there's got to be like 20 people working on it. And I don't know, did these people have these home building skills ahead of time? Like one guy's gardening, one guy's putting up a roof, one guy's drywalling.
It's a good question. And I was wondering, too, about the idea of these illegal immigrants that are also supposedly helping build these houses. You only ever see the convicts.
I think those are all the illegal immigrants. I think he's brought them over and he's just... it doesn't really make sense. He's made them prisoners.
He's dressed them all in jumpsuits.
Yeah, I think so.
They're all criminals to him.
Well, they went across the border illegally through the land that he's just purchased by fake signatures.
I mean, that's the one good part they find out when they get to Arizona. Apparently that contract they signed is never going to hold up in a court of law because both Terry and Chico put fake middle names on.
Okay, I have a question for that. I'm not a lawyer. Steve, Luke, if you put the wrong middle name on a form, you sign it, but it's your legitimate signature, does that make it null and void?
That contract is null and void because it's made under duress.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem, probably.
I would say that would be the. I don't know. Again, not a lawyer.
My middle name is Alexander. So if I wrote, instead of Jordan, I put J. Alexander, I think it still works. Now, the whole duress aside. So I don't understand. Or if I'd put Jordan David, what does it matter? I still signed it.
I think it would help in the case, making the duress case, because you would be like, so you would go to the court and you'd be like, is this your signature? And I'd be like, no, it's like, that is my signature, but I signed the wrong middle name to signal my distress. Right? And so you would like, that could be like, that then becomes like, I think it is like good to like do something to tamper with it, and then you can point to.
I would have put my name and then in brackets, wink, wink. And then they'd know. They'd know. Like when they read it, they go, oh, he's winking. So he doesn't really mean it.
My thought was just like, there's no way the sheriff isn't in bed with whatever judge runs this county, so this is going through no matter what. This seems to be a deeply corrupt part of the world.
For this show, which we've said before, at sometimes is almost a kid's show, and then other times is very adult, and those two tones don't always mix terribly well. The scene where the Hood comes in and pushes Terry down to get her signature, I thought was so aggressive and adult in a show that is so silly. It's just like, I'm like, is he gonna murder her now? No, he's just getting a signature very aggressively.
Yeah, no, there have been now 2 home invasions on this show that have been quite dark, actually. That's the Automan secret. Occasional, terrifying home invasion to keep watching.
Yeah.
Anyway, Monday finally rolls around, and Wally doesn't show up to work, so Automan's like, I better go find out what's happening. So he obviously appears at the LAPD to check the police computers. I mean, it's unclear as to why he has to show up in person, but he does. Finds the arrest for form for old Wally, and almost gets caught, of course, by Lieutenant Lieutenant Curtis, and Captain Boyd as he's poking around the computers. But if Automan's almost caught at work, Jordan, what does that mean?
He just turns into Automan, the FBI agent, which we've seen more than we've actually seen him as Automan.
Agent Otto, he's back.
Yeah, he's back. Every episode.
Trusted FBI man. Which makes sense if it's a federal computer, that there would be an FBI attaché.
An FBI guy around? That does make sense. Do you think he's still working for the Bureau of Psychic Investigations?
That was only for one episode. There's one thing I want to mention, and it was only really amusing to me, but when Wally goes to see, what's her name, Terry?
Yes.
To see Terry, I like that she's all really dressed up like they're going to go somewhere fancy. And then he's like, what's wrong? And she goes, Chico's in trouble. And he goes, your brother Chico? And I want to be like, of course, Wally. No, another Chico. Of course it's her brother. Anyways, he's just stupid.
Wally's not the fastest.
No.
Fastest.
However,
what's the phrase?
There's lots of them. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer. There's lots of idioms.
Fastest knife in the drawer.
He's not the fastest knife in the drawer. There's one thing I'm going to mention, though. In these 2 episodes, we're going to see that apparently Wally knows martial arts, which we've never seen before. He's throwing kicks and punches like no one's business.
No, Wally certainly is a real badass in these 2 episodes.
Yeah, because in the previous episodes, he couldn't fight at all. And he's doing like drop kicks and stuff. Anyways, as you were.
Yes, at any rate, now the LAPD knows Wally's apparently in trouble in Arizona, so they're going to send Lieutenant Curtis down there with Agent Automan to to check up on Wally. And it's the first time we get to see someone who's not Wally riding the auto car. And it's very funny. They make that poor old actor slam his face into the side of the car. Steve's doing a great mime job of it right now. You can't see this, listener, but it's perfect.
Well, here's the thing, though. When you're driving the auto car, or I shouldn't say when Automan is driving the auto car, does he have to make those 90-degree turns? Like, I get it if they're in a hot pursuit and there's no second to waste, but if they're just driving somewhere, do you have to? Why don't you just make a normal left turn? Or is it that he actually can't physically make any turns other than 90-degree angles?
Yeah, I would say because technically the auto car has no mass. So if he wanted to do a parabolic like transformation like of the vehicle, then he would need to calculate and exert that force.
I disagree though that it doesn't have mass. I think it because they mentioned and they explained it quite scientifically in the pilot.
Yeah.
He's a hologram with density.
No, but he adjusts his mass.
Oh, I see.
So the issue is that he can. So that's why he has intermittent intangibility. So I would say the auto car's only mass is the mass that exists in the whatever alternate dimension you go into when you're inside of Automan or the auto car.
When you enter his dimension.
You enter. Yeah, so there would be the displaced volume of the inside of the auto car, which is obviously sublimated to another plane of existence, and then the only mass existing would be at the points of contact, where the so-called wheels are.
So really, the only inconsistency in Automan is that Automan himself should only be able to make 90-degree turns when he walks around.
Yeah, because that means Automan has to then be simulating, when he's not corporeal, has to be simulating, yes, the behavior of the air acting on him. Like, and imagine doing that for his hair and the computational power that would involve.
You're just sitting there doing math as you're watching, just trying to figure out the equations it would take to get here.
I don't know that kind of physics, but I will say I would say very clearly the law of conservation. No, not the law of conservation of mass. Well, I guess the principle of angular momentum does not apply to Automan. Let's put it that way.
Speaking of entering Automan, isn't it crazy though that we haven't got one shot of when Wally goes into Automan? We don't get to see what it looks like to him. Like, do you think he just is looking out of Automan's eyes? He's like, it's a perfect fit, or do you think it's like a Tony Stark thing where he can kind of see like a little bit of the a little bit of the inside of Automan's skull, and there's like graphics and stuff?
He gets the heads-up display with how many missiles he has.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The little shield bar.
No, what it is it's just Cursor talking to him, and he's just ranking women.
Cursor.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't got to see inside the hologram realm. We get to see him hanging out with Pac-Man, getting in a fight with his neighbor Donkey Kong.
I think there are legal reasons.
Yeah, exactly. They'd have to have the knockoffs, just like all the music in this show, which are just covers of songs that you know. It'd have to be like, it's Pac-Man. I'm like, that's close.
We're gonna get to music.
Yeah. That's all next episode. In this one, though, we're getting to Arizona, and essentially they're trying to figure out how to talk to this guy. And Automan's driving them there. He's running out of power. He's just like, what? Like, I need to drop Lieutenant Curtis off so I can go find some like power plant to like drain all the power out of. And there's this moment where they're like, is this going to be some tension? Is Lieutenant Curtis going to find out about Automan? But no, don't worry. He's not going to. He's just going to attempt to go talk to the sheriff. And Lieutenant Curtis gets no further with the sheriff than Wally did before him. And the sheriff is like a little annoyed to have all these cops poking around because obviously he's, using prisoners and illegal immigrants to build his home. But he's also been getting calls from the governor's office. Apparently they need to send someone down soon from the appropriations committee because like people at the office are very worried about how the spending's going.
Well, this is the crazy thing because he, with his chain gangs, is supposed to be doing municipal works projects, and he's doing the home renovations in lieu of the road maintenance.
So I guess
Right.
so that's the thing. He's getting this what I guess was state funded money to do municipal works, but he's using that to build his house. Like, there's no way this is a long term plan. Like, someone was going to catch him no matter how many properties he buys or whatever he's going to do. There's no way this misappropriated money is not going to be caught. I wasn't sure if it was specifically that, or because he's so busy with his house, they just are not spending the money properly. Like, he's just not paying attention to the police budget at all. I wasn't sure if it was which one it was.
I think probably maybe a little of both. Because at some point, I think when he finds out they're going to come, he asks them to come in 2 weeks, and the governor's board seems like to understand what's happened in town, because they're like, yeah, we'll give you 2 weeks. And he turns to one of his deputies, and he's like, hey, how many municipal works have we started? And the guy's like, none. And he's like, that's a problem.
But you know what's funny about it? They have 2 weeks, right? You think he could put his house building on hold. He's like, no, faster. We got to finish the house, and then we'll get to other stuff. But it's like, just at least for the next 2 weeks, do things above board.
Well, there's this brief moment where he's just like, all right, send the illegals back over the border, get the chain gangs working on that bridge that's broken. Because we do see, like, at some point after Automan gets his power back, he drops in because he drove by and saw Wally working on this chain gang on this bridge. And he pops in to get, for Wally to give him the, like, scoop on what's happening here, which is Wally's advice is get that person from the governor's office down here sooner, because they won't have a chance to do all these municipal works projects. Though the best part about that scene is, as is common in Automan needs to change into a new costume in order to hide in plain sight. And in this case, he disguises himself as a sheriff's deputy so he can walk amongst the work crew. And so one of the other sheriff's deputies spots him and doesn't immediately recognize him, but was expecting reinforcements to come. And he's just like, he's like, hey, sir. And I think he's the first character to maybe say this, maybe the second, but he's just like, I noticed your collar is glowing blue. What is up with that?
Yeah, Steve, did you catch the reason he gave?
Is that you say that like that's classified? Radiation poisoning.
Yeah, it was radiation poisoning. Which, by the way, I like that everyone seems not horrified at that. They're all just like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Oh yeah, radiation. That thing that people just have sometimes.
What about those radiating pustules you have all over your body? Oh, that's also radiation poisoning.
Yeah. When's Chernobyl?
That was 1987, I believe.
I said it hasn't even happened yet.
No. So it got. What you're saying is that guy got less funny in 1987.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up to that point, it was gold.
Well, because really it was before that. Other than like the U.S. Army reactor in the 50s, there really hadn't been a nuclear disaster.
That is true.
Just become the Hulk. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very sad. Like, I mean, you guys live in Ontario. Like, they got 2 nuclear reactors out there. Very safe. Never had a problem.
Well, there was that one time they sent that false alarm that it was melting down.
Yeah, but it was a false alarm.
It was fine. It was just a hot hour for a minute.
Anyway, sorry. I'm a really pro nuclear guy. I'll get the politics out of.
So you're just mad that they were bad mouthing a nuclear power by saying radiation poisoning created Automan's collar.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's my problem with it. I do want to say like that at this time. So in Arizona, there actually is a real problem that's happening, which is something that a group starts in Arizona called the Civilian Military Assistance.
Oh no!
Which is a militia that forms to patrol and defend the border from Mexican migration. So these people go out with guns and try to walk around the border, hoping they can shoot at.
I don't understand. What's the problem?
Well,
I kid.
Yeah. So So I think this is there's a long-standing problem of I think like misconduct on the border and mistreatment, and Arizona being one of the worst states.
And so you're pretty sure this Automan episode is commenting on that.
I doubt it. I very much doubt it. That it's not consciously doing that anyway. Other than I think just like alluding to, I think there's a perception that Arizona has border troubles.
Yes.
And then I think but I don't think there's a deeper analysis.
I mean, it is the problem with Automan is it toes this line where you're like, oh, you're almost commenting on something, but you don't get it. Like its relationship to police in general is like, they can in the show they'll both be villains but also like the good guys, and they don't see any contrast with these problems at all.
Well, but that's an interesting thing that you both sort of allude to, is that Automan really, whether it's Glenn A. Larson or whoever's writing it or the other people involved, there's no desire to comment on anything in this show. That's just not what this show is. It is interesting that, you're right, Luke, they brought up things like police corruption and maybe border issues and other sort of topics where you think they have a point. I think the point is they don't have a point at all. They're just like, it's just something to get the plot going. And that maybe is a little bit because of the time the show is on, but I also think it's just the type of show they're making. They don't want you to think about anything. Like, you're not supposed to think about any deeper issues. The point is, how long are we going to take before Automan shows up in a wacky costume and saves the day in a wacky way?
Can we get you 45 minutes closer to death?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the answer for this show is always definitely yes.
It's about this time. I would say we're probably half an hour into this show. Maybe not quite half an hour. But around that point, this renegade biker gang that they've been teasing all episode finally rolls into town.
They're actually called the Renegades.
Yes. And they're driving down Main Street, literally jumping cars on Main Street.
I just love, kind of further to our point of, this show doesn't really want to do too much research or make a point. It's like it was written in some ways by an alien who's like, yeah, biker gangs, I know what those are like. And they just have people on motorbikes, but you don't ever get a sense there's any sort of realism or even the slightest bit of research being done in this. It's just guys on motorbikes. You don't get a feeling there's a culture behind this or there's an ideology at all. It's just guys on bikes. That's it. What do? They do tricks.
Can we talk about Automan's gang? The Automaniacs. He makes himself a leather jacket with a patch.
This is what I was going to say, is the reason probably the bikers even show up is so that Automan can do another costume change.
Yeah. And I think this is his third or fourth time where he's branded his change. He had Auto Jeans in one episode. He's had a name tag that I think just said Automan. And I know he's had now his jacket that's Automaniacs. Is there any more, Luke? He loves branding himself.
I mean, it's a new phenomenon for Automan. I did like the biker gang, the Automaniacs, though. I feel like that would inspire terror. And we also get a new auto vehicle. He makes the auto bike for the first time.
Yeah, I feel like they stayed away from the auto bike so that Glenn A. Larson wouldn't get sued for clearly ripping off Tron. But here we are. We finally get the bike.
It's very different from the Tron bike. It's not.
It's not as sleek as little boxy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's very different than the Tron bike.
No, fair enough.
I would say it's slightly different.
It's not exactly the same.
It's legally distinct enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to raise one point. This is a biker gang, but they ride dirt bikes.
Yes.
Like, they don't actually ride like
Harleys.
Real motorcycles. Yeah, they don't ride hogs. These are very like small and like the kind of thing that I think would deeply insult a person you do not want to insult.
You're saying the bikers at home tuning into Automan were furious at this episode.
Would they not be more furious at Automan's version of someone that isn't a biker gang? He's dressed like Marlon Brando in like The Wild One. His it seems even from 1984 to be wildly anachronistic to the time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is the bizarre thing they've decided with Automan, is that whenever he has to go undercover as someone, he should be the 40s version of that person.
Exactly.
Well, it's also because they do make a point to this in the show that Automan learns everything about culture from movies. Right, so he's just watching, like there's one point where, like, Walter's, like, feeding VHSs
Yes.
into him, and then when he puts them on, they play in his chest. And then I don't know how he watches them. He looks down. I don't know.
It's just so everyone else can see what Automan's watching, which sometimes is embarrassing for him when he's watching something a little risque.
So I think that's also partially why, like, he is a movie. He embodies movie tropes because that is.
He's just a big movie buff. He loves the classics.
Yeah, but that would work. But people don't call him on it. It's not like there could be a scene where he shows up to this biker gang and he's dressed, from the 1950s, and they're like, "What are you supposed to be?" Like, there could have been a scene there, but everyone's just like, "No, it all checks out to me."
Yeah. This is not a pastiche. This is cool.
He does know. I have to say this. We're gonna learn. He does know the rules of the road, though, so he did pick up something from his VHS tapes.
The best biker is the leader.
So crazy, because this is what kind of happens here is the sheriff comes up with this, like, plan that I couldn't make heads or tails of to deal with the bikers. But essentially, he's just like, I know the bikers will go to the only bar in town where they only serve you outside. And I'm going to call that bar up and just tell them to get the bikers really drunk. So when they come to rescue Chico, I can then use the chaos to kill Wally and Chico in the jailbreak attempt.
Is that his plan?
Yeah, but I'm just like, you could do that without them being drunk. I don't understand why.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Well, he just calls up, because he calls up this bar and talks to, like, I get Miss Judy or something and says, just give him as much booze as you can. And my favorite part is Miss Judy comes out and she's just like, we're having a special today. Beer's on the house.
Yeah, that is a special.
That's a very good special. Also, it gives, you might not have caught it because it's deep background ADR, but the leader of the biker gang, when she tells him beer's on the house, he then stands on his chair outside of the bar, looks up on the roof and says, I don't see anything up there.
What?
Yeah, it's like deep back ADR as they're talking, but you can see the leader of the biker gang stand on a chair, look on the roof, and you can hear him say, I don't see anything up there, when she says the beer's on the house, because he thinks it's literally on the house.
He's got a learning disability.
Automan, it's got it all. It's got it all. Anyway, this is when Automan shows up because he has come up with a plan, and that is, as you mentioned, we all know how biker gangs work. If you can beat the leader in a ride-off, you get to be the leader of the biker gang.
Yeah, he says, I know rules of the road. The best biker always leads. And they're all like, he is right. That is the rules of the road. So then he has his... Oh, but I like that he comes in with his auto bike, and immediately they're like, that's a racing bike. You can't use that. He's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll also use a dirt bike. So I don't know why they even bothered having the auto bike. It was just, it went with the outfit. And then we have... What I know, Luke, what you're going to say, but in my memory, it was about a 45-minute racing scene of them jumping over things that just seemed like it was designed to just waste as much time as possible to a bad cover of Born to be Wild.
I'll see. What, Steve? Do you remember there's 3 stunts Automan tries to beat him in? Do you remember?
First So first they jump over the moving truck.
A moving truck. Very impressive.
But they shoot it in such a way. They do it twice, and the first time, it's very clear that the truck is still when they jump it. So it's just like very obviously like they have the car set up on the road and they're just parked.
I mean, that is one of my favorite parts is there's all this like wide shots of motorcycles driving down roads, cutting to close-ups of Automan just clearly sitting still, pretending like just like swaying back and forth like I'm driving a bike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they have to like ride on the back wheel on a rail.
Yes, you get up on the guide. What is it called? Like a guide
bridge.
rail.
Yeah. Anyway, they have to ride like on a rail.
And like the leader has no problem. He does all of these things like they're nothing.
Yeah, and then in the end they have to jump over a lake, and the leader, the Renegade's vice commander, because Chico's the leader, obviously.
Right.
But his lieutenant crashes into the lake, rendering Automan the. Now, having the ability to alter your mass, tremendously advantageous in a bike jumping competition.
I watched that, and I'm going to argue that jumping over a pond was the easiest of those 3 things to do. So I was the most surprised he failed at that one.
I think just because it was an impossible distance, like he couldn't.
Right.
He couldn't make it, and Automan could make it because he could. He was like, "Oh man, this guy's actually pretty good. I guess I just have to rig the physics."
Regardless, he's now the de facto leader, and what he says goes. No matter what he says goes.
No guns, guys. No guns. Also, you're real drunk right now. So.
Why couldn't Automan? Because he just didn't want all the cops to get killed at some point. But it's like they clearly are going to do some mayhem and really beat the hell out of people anyways. So like, did it really matter?
Yeah, it's very weird because that's Automan's like, we're gonna go for whatever reason. What we'd seen before this is the sheriff's like, we need to make sure that the prisoners finish the public works properties, but like that lasted 2 hours. They're now back at his house working on his house. So Automan's like, we're gonna head to the sheriff's house. You guys leave all your weapons here. I don't want you hurting anybody. So no weapons. And then we get a very like Naked Gun style gag.
Yeah.
Where they're just pulling more and more weapons out of their jacket and tossing them in a giant pile on the ground, which is probably one of the best things Automan's ever done.
Mm-hmm. If it was Naked Gun, though, it would have been a thing where, like, it just kept getting more and more ludicrous. There's, like, a pair of panties.
Out a bazooka.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Guy reaches into his shirt, and pulls out a whole atom, like a fat man atom bomb.
Yeah.
Automan then says, "Wait here a second while I sneak into," because as we know, he walks through walls. So he sneaks into the sheriff's house, which also has a full armory for some reason.
He is an American.
He is an American. He, what I like is he takes all of the guns off the rack and then puts them in a closet.
Yeah, I know. He has super strength. He could have just broken the guns or done anything with them, or like just neutralized them with his Automan powers. But it's like they'll never find them over here, 2 feet away.
Well, it's because he wants Kersher to make a bunch of fake guns so that like when they try to use them, the guns can disappear from their hands for some reason.
Yeah, which raises the question we've had a few times in this show: is these? I'm gonna, for lack of a term, call them digital projections that Automan and Cursor do. How long do they actually last for? Because we've seen him do this sort of trick before, but in this episode, it seems like he knows it's only going to last a certain amount of time. Now, I don't know if it has like a finite amount of time and he just has timed it well, or you can control it, or Cursor can sort of control when things come and go.
I think Cursor pulled the plug. That's what I think.
Yeah. The only other limit on an object's persistence, other than executive function like of Automan or Cursor, I would say would then be power supply. Because like with the plane, right? Like constructs will regularly dissipate. We're just like add a juice, bye. Which again, that whole thing about reliance on the grid and being like, okay, so Automan has trouble running when people are getting up in the morning in the city of Los Angeles, which has 600. That's like a 600 megawatt grid, and then he goes to like a like a town, and I don't know, their grid is probably like considerably less than that. So the idea that he's doing all these things is.
Well, he did say...
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. That's the key. Although I will say, when he arrived, he said he was going to go to the local power plant. So I assume most of the city is currently blacked out from whatever Automan did at that power plant to juice up.
Which was off camera, by the way.
Disgusting.
Yeah, totally off camera.
Because it was disgusting.
Yeah. Whatever he did. Ugh.
Hello.
It was not safe for television. But yes, Automan's now neutralized the guns in the armory. He just now has to get rid of the bullets in the sidearms the cops have. So he does the most hilarious. He pulls up in front of all the cops who are guarding the prisoners at the house, pops a wheelie on his motorcycle, and then just drives back and forth at perfect 180s as if he's at a shooting range, and they all just open fire.
That was one of the weirdest looking things they've done on the show. Again, this is the thing where it looks like a kid's show suddenly. Which is fine if that's the show they had. But again, this has been a very adult sort of episode up to this point where it's like zany. Yeah, you're right. Like he's a shooting game at a carnival for some reason.
And they also can't do the effect of the motorbike on the ridge. So they have him popping the wheelie going one way and then cut to him just reversing and they're just flipping the film. So it looks like he's doing these dime turns. Yeah.
I was laughing so hard at that scene. It's just the weirdest. It's one of the weirdest effects they've pulled off, and it's just so weird and funny. I don't know why they would have done it, but it worked for me. At any rate, now that the bullets are all gone from the deputies' guns, all the bikers show up. They just start beating the shit out of the cops who were there.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like, I guess he knew it was going to happen, but he didn't want them to beat them with bats and things, so it's like their hands are fine, but it's not like because if they're not fighting, and not that I'm condoning it, but if they're not fighting, what's the point of even bringing them around? That's what they're there for. So it just seemed weird to handicap them.
That's true. We find the sheriff. He still has. We don't really see her for much of this episode, but Terry, the sister's still kicking around. She's also a prisoner on this chain gang, and the sheriff's trying to drag her away while this mayhem's breaking out. And it was you may not have noticed this at all, but it just caught my eye and it made me insane. But she picks up a 2x4 to fight him off, and she grabs it and jams it right into his chest to kind of knock him down. And when she pulls it back, the entire front of the 2x4 is now covered in red, as if she's stabbed him in the chest with this 2x4. I was like, what? Wait, what's happened here?
Oh, and I should mention, you're saying that she's running away and the sheriff's going to chase her. And I think you said at the beginning of this episode that they sort of established this creepy relationship. And it's more than it's creepy. I think the sheriff even alludes to at one point that if they don't agree to what he's doing, he's going to let all of the men have their way with her.
Yes.
And it's just like, this is insane in a
repeatedly.
kid's show.
Repeatedly threatens her that way. It's absurd.
And so when he's chasing her here, I guess the thing is he's going to keep her for himself for some reason. That's what we're supposed to believe here in the closing minutes of the episode.
Yes, but this is where Wally finally becomes that action hero you're talking about. He jumps on the back of Automan's bike and then leaps from the back of the bike onto a moving pickup truck. And then he pulls the sheriff out of the driver's seat of the pickup truck through the back window, and they have a fight in a moving pickup truck before they fall off, and Wally high kicks him into unconsciousness.
Yeah, I actually feel, and I could very well be wrong, I feel like old Desi Arnaz Jr., at a certain point in the show, is like, guys, I'm supposed to be the star of this show. I'm getting beaten up every episode. Nothing's happening. I want to be an action star. And I feel like halfway through the season or 3/4 through this season, someone's like, okay, because this episode, the next episode, suddenly he's more than a competent fighter, where before he was the exact opposite. It just feels like he's like, you got to make me a tough guy.
It definitely feels that way for sure. And, of course, Lieutenant Curtis finally returns to the plot of the show when he pulls up and arrests all the corrupt cops, I guess. I don't like, it's just so weird. He just pulls up, he's like, you're all under arrest.
He has to get the county's commissioner from the state.
Right, to look into the malfeasance.
Yeah. Check those spreadsheets. You'll see that these men need to be arrested.
Well, it's very funny because then we kind of cut to like the usual button scene at the end of these episodes where we're back at the LAPD and Captain Boyd gets a chance to like do some acting. And he essentially just kind of lets them know that isn't it ironic that the sheriff's going to get 10 years on a chain gang for his involvement in this. And then he mentions, he's like, oh, and by the way, there was also this lady we never talked about and didn't show on the episode, but she was making fake green cards for all the illegal immigrants. She's also going to prison. And I was just like, what?
No, do you know who that was? It was the lawyer.
It was the lawyer? It was
Yeah.
Terry's lawyer?
Yeah, so the lawyer, there's a scene where you find out that the lawyer who they went to for help is actually on the sheriff's side. She's been helping him.
Wild.
So they just, it's like, but no one tracked that because no one cares. But they had to make sure at the end of the episode that there was not like a 9-year-old watching this go, wait a minute, what about that lawyer? She deserves a punishment too.
Well, and if you were worried about those illegal immigrants, don't worry. The state's going to do right by them. They're all getting green cards.
Yeah, that seemed like the most unbelievable thing in this entire episode. More than Automan turning into a biker and all of his superpowers was that the state just deciding to give all these illegal immigrants a green card.
It's true. That is also where I was just like, well, that would never happen. But yes, this is sort of, they're wrapping up the episode, and the big punchline of the episode, though, is that a package has arrived from the Renegades motorbike gang for Wally as a thank you at the end of the episode. And he pulls it out. It's a big leather biker jacket, and he puts it on and starts acting like a tough guy. And Roxanne finally gets a moment to shine this episode where she's just like, oh, I love a macho man. And she goes to touch his jacket, and Wally turns to her and says, don't touch that woman. She's like, oh, you've never been more hot to me.
Yeah. I like the thought, though, that there was someone in the biker gang who's in charge of, like, handling presents for people. And he had to, like, go to the store, pick out the jacket, you know, wrap it, put it in the mail.
Got to make sure they get this, a little thank you gift from us. Mm-hmm. Bikers are known for their thank you gifts.
Yeah.
Hospitality and logistics is an important part of having any sort of armed group. So,
oh dear, Automan. Another very weird episode, but nothing compared to what we're going to get into next. Because here's the IMDb summary for episode 9, Murder MTV.
Hello, Walter.
Hello? What are you doing here?
Well, I called the station. Roxanne told me you'd been assigned security for Sweet Kicks. I thought you might be needing my help.
Well, I don't, especially not looking like that.
Walter, I'd like to stay. This may be my only chance to study a whole new culture.
What new culture?
Why, rock and roll, of course. I've become quite a fan of late.
Is that so?
Well, you don't have to be human to want to get down and boogie.
Sid Cole, a record producer and manager of his daughter's up-and-coming rock band, quote, Sweet Kicks, is blackmailed. An explosion rocks a music video shoot, and it is down to Walter and Automan to find out who is behind this.
Hey, did they say his name was Sid? I thought his name was Lee.
It is. They got his name wrong.
Okay. I don't usually catch characters' names, but I know they called him Lee. Did you guys know that, and I didn't, that Laura Branigan, who plays Jessie, I think is the singer's name, she was an
the lead
actual
of the
singer.
Sweet Kicks?
Yeah, leader of the Sweet Kicks. So that's why we have to have 95 singing sequences in this show.
It's going to be a hot night.
Yes. It is going to be a hot night. I had to look this up because I was also like, this sounds exactly like the song Hot Night, which I'm familiar with from being a child listening to the Ghostbusters soundtrack over and over again. And sure enough, it is in fact the original singer in a TV role as Jessie Cole, the lead singer of the Sweet Kicks. And they basically do several of her songs throughout the episode. They'll do this, they'll do Gloria, and then I think there's another song of hers they do later too.
Well, in this world, her song, and which one was it? But all I know is it's hit number 2. What was the song?
That was
It's
Hot
gonna be a
Night.
hot night. No.
Yeah, that's it. Keep going.
Gonna be a hot night tonight. Great song.
Also, you know what is not mentioned in this? Talking about themes that they don't go into. I really wanted them to delve deeper into the nepotism of this world. That her dad's the record producer. Give me a break.
You wanted more of a Celine Dion situation where she was dating him.
At least it wasn't nepotism. No, wait a minute. No, it still is nepotism. I take it back. I want neither.
This episode kind of begins, it looks like a music video, and then you come to realize they're actually in a studio kind of shooting a music video for the band The Sweet Kicks. And we get sort of an odd sequence where we see someone placing what looked to me like a CD spinning with like a little digital countdown on it, which causes a small explosion on the set of this studio, and everyone goes crazy. Someone's tried to bomb the music video.
There's so many bombs in this show. There's almost as many bombs going off as there is various mafia groups in this world. It's crazy. Every episode is a bomb going off. Although we're going to learn this one's a little bit different. This one is a bomb that is set off when the volume hits a certain level, which is, I guess, pretty sophisticated. But you would think it would work better for like a much heavier band than Sweet Kicks are. Like Sweet Kicks are like a fun little pop band. It's not like they're going to be going, they're not going to 11.
They're no Automan.
It was that was the reference, Luke. It was a Spinal Tap joke.
At any rate, this is what brings the LAPD to investigate it. They're coming to find out who planted a bomb on this set. Of course, Wally shows up and he summons Automan into the control room of the the music studio so he can look at this computerized bomb, which, as you said, he's like, it has something to do with volume, I guess.
They have a fragment of a circuit. Doesn't that look like an acoustic circuit to you, Otto? Yes, Walter.
But isn't it crazy though that it's happened more in the last several episodes? Well, they have this sort of scene where Wally is investigating something, where he's being tasked with doing something, and he calls an Automan, and Automan gives him some help, as you would think, because he's this supercomputer manifestation. And then he's like, anyways, we've worked on this thing. Anything else? And Wally's always like, nope, I'll take it from here. I'm like, why? Why would you take it from here? He's much, much better than you, and you're not utilizing him at all. No, like have him do more stuff.
I did like when Automan is called to this like control room in this studio. Automan looks around and says, "With the equipment like this, a hologram could rule the world." And I was just like, red flag, Wally. But Wally's response to it is very weird as well, because he's just like, well, as far as I know, holograms aren't an organized political party. Otto shoots back. What does he shoot back?
Well, neither are the Democrats or the Republicans, as far as I can see.
He doesn't care if it's left or right. He's hitting everybody. Classic Automan.
Automan, fascistic third positionist.
Who was the major third party candidate in 1984? Was it still what's his face?
I think. When does Ross Perot run?
Oh, Ross Perot wasn't, I think, till 92.
Because there's Barry Goldwater in the 70s, but I don't know if maybe Ralph Nader has. I don't know if Ralph Nader has run yet.
So maybe there's a void for Automan here.
Yeah, I mean Nader wrote he ran like 50 times, so maybe.
Yeah, probably Ralph. But I mean, I don't think Nader was like a. It wasn't yet in vogue to blame Ralph Nader for every Republican victory. So.
At any rate, what we kind of know is that like someone's after perhaps this High Kicks.
High Kicks or Sweet Kicks?
Sweet Kicks. I'm sorry. It's a much better name than High Kicks. I do like the Sweet Kicks name. But Jessie, as we've mentioned, is managed by her father, Lee. And he gets a call after the explosion because he's being blackmailed, essentially. somebody wants him to pay $50K or he'll tell them all what he saw in Texas.
What could it have been?
Huge shock.
But so he's going to go right away. So he knows he's being blackmailed. So he goes to, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he's another mafia guy. But he's got to be the quietest.
Latrone.
Yeah. He's got to be the quietest, most passive mafia boss I've ever met. Like, I was just like, this guy?
Yeah, he's a very, very casual mafia boss. And basically, he shows up, he's like, hey, Latrone, can you do me a favor? I just need a couple goons to provide security for my daughter and her band. And Latrone's happy to do it because I guess sometime previously, Lee took a fall. And did you catch what he took a fall for, Steve?
No, I did not. It was not clear to me. So it was all gangster euphemisms. I didn't.
Well, apparently what happened was a mob record label sometime in the 70s was doing a payola scam. Whatever that. I don't know what that means.
Payola was basically an illegal way of having songs play on the radio for kickbacks.
And old Lee took the hit for Latrone and did the jail time for him.
Good deal.
So now he's going to get this one favor from this mob boss. And let's talk about it really quick right now because he is being blackmailed. Steve, do you remember what he's being blackmailed for? Does this make any sense?
It's very convoluted. He murdered a police officer or someone attacked his daughter, right? There was things got out of hand. One thing led to another, and he killed this man who was a police officer, correct?
Yeah.
That is correct. It is very similar to the previous episode. A police officer attempted to plant drugs on his daughter
Right.
in order to extort money from the band where they were playing a gig in Texas. Lee would not stand for it, so he got in a tussle with this police officer. The police officer's gun went off, killing the police officer. And then I guess Lee ran away.
And how many years ago did they say this happened?
2 weeks.
Oh, it was only 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Oh.
So he doesn't even know if he might not even get away with it just for normal reasons.
Yeah. I thought it was, for whatever reason, I thought it had happened years before. And that's why I was like, but if it happened years before, how long has this Sweet Kicks been struggling for? But that makes more sense if it's only been 2 weeks. So they've had a really tumultuous career so far. Police dying, bombs going off.
Yeah, and he got over that murder of a police officer very quickly and just moved on with his life.
Yeah, because you're right. It feels like it's something from his deep, dark, distant past. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a fortnight ago.
Yeah, and I think that, to me, then that also means that, like, the blackmailer is much easier to find, right? Because there hasn't been, there's a small group of people it could be. Like, there's the thing that's really frustrating about this is they're like, okay, we need to find this blackmailer, but they make no effort.
No.
They conduct no investigation into the crew. And I understand the cops, they're totally in the dark. But the mafia guys, they know. Like, they, start hitting the people in the crew, start shaking them down. Like, who could possibly know? It can't be that many people. Start working it.
I know.
Do the, bust
They
some
just
heads.
allow this to continue. They just allow this blackmail to continue unabated.
You know who also doesn't do their work? Wally, when he's making a dinner for someone.
Yes, there's a very weird scene unrelated to the rest of the plot that pops up about now in the show where Wally is making dinner for Roxanne because it's her 1-year police anniversary.
He's apparently Seymour Skinner, and he's making some steamed hams.
I know it is just the steamed hams gag. It's such a sitcom. Like she's like, this dinner is amazing. Thanks so much for making it for me. He's like, no problem. Walks in and just takeout containers everywhere, and you're just like, oh, Wally.
Did you catch what he made though? That was so fancy.
Bolognese?
No.
It was cannelloni.
Cannelloni.
That was it. She's like, I've never had anything like this. I'm so blown away. She's still reeling from that leather jacket, I think. She just doesn't know ups, down, blacks, white. She doesn't know what's happening.
She just loved that casual misogyny. She was really
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Well, she's Walter is gay for Automan, right? Like that's she likes Wally, but she
There
knows,
is some subtext there, yes.
Yeah, Automan is in the way, and I get it. Who doesn't want to take 6 different handsome men and make a gestalt that you can go inside and feel powerful and safe?
Well, also what's so weird is up till now, Wally's actually he's referred to Roxanne as his girlfriend, even though she is not dating him. And then in this episode, it seems like maybe she's in love with him and not the opposite.
Well, I mean, it's nice that she gets a scene, but then it's like it's like you're saying, it has nothing to do with the episode and doesn't develop
come
anything.
back in any
And it's just
way.
like, it's that, and then she comes in, she's like, did you make a cake? And it's a whole gag of Cursor, I guess, wants to have sex with her, so he's pretending the cake's from her. But let me just say this. Let's say Cursor, who is proven time and time again to be quite horny, this little glowing ball. What is his plan? He's just a glowing ball. How is this going to work? Let's say a woman's like, all right, Cursor, I'm into it. What are you going to do, Cursor? Nothing.
I mean, he could make any object. So
Yeah, he can make any object, but he can't become any object himself.
can't operate the object. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just wants to watch.
I guess. So his gag is he makes like a sparkler and a cake. And I was like, all right, thanks for wasting 2 minutes of my life, Automan.
Yeah, this scene really rang of like, hey, we're about 4 to 5 minutes short on this episode.
But I mean, they are consistently negligent in protecting their charge, though, right? Like, multiple bad things happen to her. Well,
It's wonderful.
yeah.
They bring in Automan and Wally from the police department to sort of be her bodyguards. And time again, there's at least 3 we see on camera, so I can only assume off camera there was more, where Automan and Wally are so enamored with each other's conversation that she just walks outside and like a car comes by and almost hits her, and then later on in the episode a car comes up with like a machine gun and just abducts her. There's no security on site, they're not watching her, and it's like you would think if there was one dangerous car attack, the entire security for the building would change, but they're like, nope, as is. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you remember back in this is maybe a bad example, but I remember I think it was the Glasgow airport in Scotland where someone took a car. It was some sort of terrorist attack, and they drove it into the side of the building. And I remember I went to that airport not too long after it. Let me tell you, they had changed security for that building dramatically. And I know it's maybe a little too much realism for this show, but, like, give me a break, guys.
No, not just there, but everywhere. Like, during, like, in the, like, 2010s, when, like, ISIS was doing all those car attacks, like, rondels were being, like, those big things, big stone things to stop cars, were being put everywhere. Like, every major city was getting, like, they was getting rondels installed because, yeah, it didn't just change security in Glasgow; it changed it literally everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
Even in Edmonton, like there were all of a sudden wherever there's like any sort of pedestrian concourse, they were throwing up stones.
Even in Edmonton.
Well, Edmonton also had a car attack, so a
Right.
guy rented a U-Haul and drove it into some people.
Ooh.
He was an incel, though, so
Yeah.
Wally's an incel too, so let's be careful what we say.
Yeah. But it is to the point it's like, you know, I think this is the scene where she just goes walking because Wally's not a very good security guard. Also, I know they need him to do something, but why would you send your computer tech out on these
Oh, I'll
on
tell
this
you
mission?
why. It's because Captain Boyd thinks rock and roll is stupid and doesn't want to spare any of his useful officers. So he's just like, I'm sending you, Wally. I don't want to spare a good cop.
That's true.
But you're right. It's so crazy because basically Wally goes there. Automan obviously shows up as he always does because he wants to learn about this rock and roll culture, and then like transforms himself into a rockabilly.
Yeah. He's you knew he was going to play guitar at some point in the show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, they're bad security, but it's crazy too because there's those 2 mob goons who are also ostensibly providing. So they've got 4 people on this band. They're doing a terrible job of it. She's almost getting murdered perpetually. She finally just goes and asks her dad. She's just like, "Hey, Dad, just tell me what's going on. Someone's obviously trying to kill me." And the dad just like tells her everything. He's just like, killed a cop in Texas. And she's just like, "Oh, Dad, that's okay." Like nobody's plussed by this idea that he killed a cop in Texas. Everyone's fine with it. And they have to head off in the middle of all this to the big record company executives party for the Sweet Kicks. And this is, again, we get more music. We cut to it.
I have a question,
Lauren Brannigan singing.
When they said they were going to a party, I assumed it was going to be like a party. Not like, is it a party if you have to also perform? It's not that fun, right?
I know, they're working at their own party.
Yeah, exactly. And they only have 2 or 3 songs, so I guess it's going to be a real, like, they got to do 8 to 10 minutes?
I do like that we see them singing a song. The song ends, and we cut to Lee on the phone complaining that the guitarist has canceled for the show today. I'm like, but they just played a song.
Yeah, but not the song that needed the guitar, Luke. They were fine to go ahead with the first song. The tambourine guy showed up.
And this is the big moment where Automan gets the chance to like create his own Auto brand guitar and rip it up with the band, the Sweet Kicks.
I think his fake guitar playing was better than I thought it was going to be. It's not great, but he's actually moving his hands. He's trying to make chords. he's given it everything. So good on Automan actor who I can't remember his name, Gavin Johnny or whatever his name is.
Chuck Wagner.
Chuck Wagner. That's it. I was pretty close.
Yeah, he. It's interesting though because at one point he like walks away in the middle of the song, like Walter pulls him away, but the guitar line continues in the song.
He's that
like,
good.
Yeah,
He's just that good.
They didn't make a cut of the song where the guitar like didn't remix the song without the guitar, so it just keeps on.
That made me laugh so hard. It's like mid-song, and Wally, it pulls him off stage, but nobody stops playing or notices the guitarist has left.
They are professionals.
Why does he decide that as a musician his look is a black tux with red lapels and a red tie? Was that a rock star look? I don't know what that was supposed to be.
I don't know. That's why I was just like, I'm like, is he a rockabilly? I don't know what this look is.
It's lost to the sands of time.
Yeah.
But he's pulled away because the most baffling sequence takes place is there's the two mob goons acting as security. And what they see is Lieutenant Curtis acting as security parked outside of the venue watching for the blackmailer. They see him and they're like, oh, I don't know who that is. Maybe that's the blackmailer. Let's drive by and get a peek at him. They drive by, and at this point, as we haven't talked about, Otto and Wally had a sense that something was wrong with these two new security guards. They saw them and they're like, something seems wrong. I kind of recognize them. Mm-hmm. And they kind of figured out they're working for the mob. So the cops kind of know the mob is hanging around.
Yeah, but you get this kind of scene, which is funny because you think it would kind of get played up a little more, which is two different people are doing the same job, but there's a bit of they don't know the other person's doing a job. But it just becomes a car chase. And I was like, why did it become a car chase?
That's what it did. This thing is like, Wally was told they're security. Yes, he's figured out they're from the mob, but he's been told they're security for the blackmailer. But basically, it seems like no one told the mob that cops had security here. And the cops haven't been able to figure out the mob is doing security. So it's just this weird car chase where the two security guards are chasing each other for some reason and like leaving her completely exposed.
What I like, though, is the car chase ends with, because, it's like a lot of, your classic late 70s, early 80s kind of car chase, a lot of like tires spinning through dust. And then they drive over what I think is like it's a parked vehicle of some sort that has an incline, so they use it as a ramp, and they seem nervous about it, but nail it. They go over and nail the landing, and then Jack, who seems very confident, is like, "Oh, you think so?" He does it and just flips his car immediately because he's old, I guess. And he's out. He's I think they drag him out, and he's like, "Hey boys," and then they knock him out because they think he's like, I guess they assume he is the person who is stalking and or attacking Sweet Kicks, and then they're like, "Oh, he's a cop. Oopsie daisy," and they take off.
It is a weird, crazy scene. And we talked about this a little off air, though. So, Steve, you had a real problem with Otto recognizing those two gentlemen, but not knowing why.
Yeah, it's very infuriating. You're a computer. You either recall something in its entirety or you don't have it. There's no, what's that guy?
What's his name? I can't quite come up with it. It was very funny. And I'm used to it from Wally. A big part of the show has been Wally sees someone and says, they look familiar. And about like 40 minutes later, he puts his finger on it. But now for Automan to also have this problem?
It's for especially since like these are people who are in the system whose names and identities, including headshots, have been uploaded into the computer. So therefore,
the computer banks.
Automan would have them. So it's like
you have access.
In terms of the mechanics of the episode, what does it matter if they remember them or not? It doesn't really change anything in this episode, does it?
I guess it was a misdirect because when they see the mobs there acting as security, there's this like weird subplot where the police decide that the mob is there to shake down the Sweet Kicks. And it's not till after this chase they decide that no, the mob is, they said they were there for security and they really are there for security. It was so confusing.
I mean, you could definitely see this kind of thing where you have like two operations by two armed groups, the police and the mob, right, and they end up just fighting each other. Like that is a very believable outcome.
They needed to coordinate a little better. At any rate, this is about the time when Lee and the mob goons decide it's time to try to catch this blackmailer. So they set up a drop of the $50,000, which is really Lee puts down an empty briefcase at the drop spot they picked. The blackmailer pulls up on his motorcycle, and when he goes to grab the empty briefcase, the mob goons just pull in their car and kind of like chase after him. It didn't seem like the most effective sting, but it was particularly undermined by the fact that the blackmailer brought a submachine gun with him.
It becomes like a almost gruesome scene. He sort of like shoots them off the road. That goes on, and it's clearly like footage from something else because it's way bigger than anything this show does. It's like the car explodes and then goes down the hill and explodes more. And then one guy, I guess, had fallen out of the car and is on the ground, and he just blows the guy away with a machine gun. I don't think we've seen anything that violent in this show before.
Yeah, it was quite good. I liked watching that man just destroy those two goons for no apparent reason.
They messed with him. And then I guess because this man has killed 2 operators for a criminal syndicate, and the Don says, I'm not falling for a sunk cost fallacy. Listen, I gave you 2 men to put into this. I'm walking away.
I paid you back your favor of going to jail. You gave you those 2 men. You killed him, so that you lost your 2 men. It is very funny because even like Lee comes back and he's just like, "Hey, listen, I need your help again. I'm just gonna pay this guy. Lend me $50,000, and I will like give you, like you'll get a cut of everything the Sweet Kicks make." And the mob boss is like, No, thank you. I'm not very interested in this. I'm like, this is the entire job the mob isn't it? Is to like buy its way into businesses. This guy's not interested at all.
No. This mob, everyone knows that what are they? The Lanigans? What are they? The Ladrones. They're low risk, low reward. That's this group.
They're very conservative mafia.
Yeah.
they only break into blue chips, your laundromats, your corner stores.
Exactly.
It is very funny. It feels that way. They're very much just like, he's just like, no, thank you. This is a very nice offer, but I can't help you any further. And the mob is out of the rest of the episode.
I mean, maybe he doesn't want to squeeze his friend. Maybe he does genuinely like the guy. He's like, I don't want to make my life about fucking you over. Like,
I love the idea though. It's like the first episode of The Sopranos, and someone comes to Tony with a deal, and he's like, nah, and then it's just end credits, and there's no more episodes.
I mean, that's that whole plot with Robert Patrick, where he's just like gets his buddy addicted to the gambling too much. But
that's right.
This time, he won't let it happen.
That's a deep cut for any Sopranos fans out there.
Anyway, the blackmailer's not happy about getting double crossed. So it's all the blackmailer's plans don't make a lot of sense to me. Like the bomb, I don't understand. He like sends this newspaper to Jesse.
Well, you're right, because if the bomb seemingly was meant to, if not kill Jesse, but like really hurt people, but that doesn't really help his end goal, because what if he accidentally just killed her? So it's like, unless it's a very controlled bomb, because it's sort of like they did the bare amount of research possible in terms of how someone would act in terms of blackmail, because sometimes he's actually blowing bombs up, sometimes he's making threatening calls, and now I think at this point the scene you're going to get to he sends a newspaper clipping from a couple weeks ago to be like, nah, I knew what happened with your dad. And he's also really obnoxious on the phone.
I don't understand why they didn't put a grenade inside the briefcase.
Oh, that's
like, I don't know why they didn't put a bomb in his briefcase. He just goes in and rips it open. Like, I don't know why they didn't put like the mafia has grenades. Like, they could just rig up a thing with a fragmentation grenade and blow his face
also
off.
I think there was a turn missing when Automan gets the newspaper in the mail and gives it to whatever her name is, Jessie, because he like gets it and goes, looks good to me. I'm like, no, you could have had Automan scan it with his supervision and look through it or something. But it's like, have you guys never heard of anthrax? It could have been something in there. He didn't check it at all. He's just like, looks good to me, and gives it to her.
Well, I like the give her the newspaper. She reads the headline about the murdered cop, and then she runs off to see her dad. And then Wally and Otto just stand there like, do you think that headline has anything to do with this blackmail case? And they're like, well, I don't know. But this is the point. She runs off with this newspaper, shows it to her dad. He's quite upset. And then Jesse once again just walks outside. That white paneled van pulls up with the kidnapper or the blackmailer in it, puts a gun on her and like kidnaps her and drives off. And after she's been kidnapped, Wally and Otto step outside and they're like, uh-oh, we better chase him down. And Automan's like, oh, bad news, guys. I'm out of power, so I gotta go.
What I like, though, is Wally goes, I guess there's nothing I can do. I was like, did you guys carpool in? Wally, I think you have a car. You can still chase him. And many times in this show, Wally has gone out by himself. Why he just was like, well, there's not another bus for 15 minutes, so I guess we'll just let her go.
It was just the most baffling scene. Like, they've been very bad about like using Automan's low power as like a contrivance to raise the stakes. But in this particular one, having him just step outside and be like, well, I'm out of power, bye.
But I do like the villain in this. I don't know why his name tickled me so much, but we're going to find out his name's Sam Clementine. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, he pulls off his mask and reveals himself as one of the roadies of the Sweet Cars.
Now, do either of you think that we as a viewer were supposed to have tracked that and being like, wait a minute, it's that guy from the first scene in the background?
I mean, roadies and technical crew are working people, and therefore do not exist in the world of television. Like, they're there, but they don't have agency. They don't have nothing. Nothing happens in their lives. They return to their gray boxes and wait for people with speaking lines to need them.
I do like this Clementine character though, because he is perhaps an insane lunatic who's escaped an asylum of some sort. Because what we come to find out is, we've said he's planted bombs, he's nearly run her down, he's done all these things essentially to blackmail her, but like also kill her. It's unclear, but he explains later on that he saw the whole thing with the cop go down. And then once it happened, he walked over after Lee left, found out the cop actually was not dead. He had not been killed by that gun. So he murdered the cop himself so that he could properly do blackmail.
Yeah. But he's still, Lee still shot the cop in this tussle, this vague tussle we've heard about, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. But they go out of the way to be like, oh, well, don't worry, though. Lee's not a bad guy. He didn't fully kill the cop. This other guy did. So he's off the hook.
Yeah, he only 60% killed the cop.
Yeah, I like that his thing is, I'm blackmailing you with the evidence that will exonerate you.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. At any rate, it's at this point, like, Lee's at the end of his rope. He finally is forced to come clean to the LAPD and tell them everything that's happened. Like, the cop he shot in Texas, his daughter getting kidnapped, all of this stuff. And Lieutenant Curtis, because Automan and Wally are out of the picture, Lieutenant Curtis has to step up and, like, set up a plan to catch the blackmailer. Which is, I could not understand what his plan was, because what we see is they basically, like before, pull up to a drop spot to hand the money off to the blackmailer, Clementine. Lee hands the money over to Clementine, and Detective Curtis is hiding in the passenger seat of the car. And once the handoff happens, Lieutenant Curtis jumps out of the car and then runs into the woods, firing wildly over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what was the plan?
It seemed like even him being in the car was a very dangerous idea and way to go about things, right? It's like, there's got to be, if you wanted to have a police presence, there should have been a better one other than the car, because they didn't know what they were driving
they didn't
into.
Bring any backup. It's just him in the car, and he just runs away as soon as he sees the blackmailer.
He's also a terrible shot.
Yeah, awful.
That blackmailer has very heavy weaponry. He has a submachine gun.
That's true.
So you're gonna show up with your 6-round revolver. Against this guy's Uzi. Like, what's the plan there? And also, shame on the blackmailer who should be like, "There's a guy in your car." Like I said, come alone. Like, call off the meat, do something. Like,
Lieutenant Curtis was just a lot braver before he showed up, and then when he got there, he's like, "Oh, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. Goodbye." And thankfully for Lieutenant Curtis is he didn't plan to have any backup, but Wally has been like at his computer since Automan disappeared, basically begging Automan via text message to come back, and Automan's just not replying. So Wally decides of his own accord to also drive up to the drop spot, and happens to get the drop on the blackmailer as he's trying to like get away. So we get another scene where Wally gets to like be a badass and is fighting this blackmailer.
Yeah, now he finds his car, I noticed.
Yes, now he finds his car to get there. And when it looks like Wally might lose the fight, of course, now is also the time that out of nowhere Automan will suddenly appear. The auto car pulls up and so startles the blackmailer that I guess it gives Wally the chance to high kick him one more time into unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
it's a signature move.
Signature move. We haven't seen it since, I think, Planet of the Apes, this much high kicking.
Yeah, there's a lot of high kicking.
And then, of course, Automan goes and tracks down the missing Jesse, who is trapped in this van still. And we haven't talked about this, but throughout the episode, Jesse is in love with Automan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a running gag where she's very attracted to him, and he throws open the doors and he's like, "You're saved," and she's like, "This is just like a fairy tale. Now are we going to hook up?" And Automan's like, "No, we're going to be very good friends."
But they make out.
But they still make out. They're good friends who make out.
Aw.
It was just so funny to me that Automan really shoots her down for no apparent reason.
No.
We kind of come to the button at the end because they've saved the day. Everything's fine. We cut back to Captain Boyd, and he's just like, "Great work, everybody. This case is closed. I guess we're not going to put any charges against Lee, the dad who shot a police officer. He's off the hook now."
This cop killer can go, because we learned things on the way.
It was only an attempted murder. But let's go watch the High Kicks perform their final music video.
Sweet
and
Kicks.
Sweet Kicks, thank you, the Sweet Kicks. And we get to see them do a final performance where they just cut back to Automan panting like a dog as he watches.
Well, she throws him a rose, and he gets to hold a rose while they're performing, and it's just odd and awkward for everybody.
Just a weird end where they get to go watch them play. We didn't talk about it at all because there's like a lot of just like stuff that doesn't matter in this episode. But there are two other members of High Kicks. There's two women who are like really hot for Wally for some reason, but I couldn't tell what they do in the band.
They back up.
They were just backup dancers, yeah. One of them grabs Wally's arms like, "Ooh, look at the muscles," and I was like, "This is just mean to Desi Arnaz Jr. because he clearly doesn't have any muscles, but they still have to do that scene."
Because Wally's hot now; he's a badass.
Yeah. I had a question though. Do you think Lee has learned his lesson and maybe made the job of the roadies and sound techs and all a little bit better? Because apparently this guy hated the job so much that he was willing to go to all this trouble. And he mentions how much he hates his job, Sam Clementine. Do you think he's like, "All right, guys, you can unionize now"?
No, 100% not.
Yeah, it is interesting that in a certain sense, both of these episodes are about labor disputes. At the end of the day, I was like, well, okay, this is like weirdly Marxian.
Well, this is a good time. Before we get into ratings, is there anything we haven't covered that you were hoping to get into, Steve or Jordan? Any little pieces?
I really want to talk about the year's 1984 when this is airing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So 1984, one event happens in 1984 that catches my attention, and it is the Technology, Entertainment, and Design Conference is first held in California. Now, people might not know what technology, entertainment, and design is because it's mostly known now by its acronym TED. So the first TED Talk occurs in
Very
1984, and so TED, which is ultimately comes to be funded by something called the Sapling Foundation, which is ultimately absorbed to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But it is the public arm of like the it's the public relations arm of the Silicon Valley revolution. And so I think what you see is the internet as we know it doesn't really exist, right? What there is now, so ARPANET is still operational, right? And ARPANET's the first kind of internet. It's the Advanced Research Project network. And the FBI is also implementing its first joint data center program to allow federal buildings to communicate. And so and then that's kind of the real basis for what's going on in the plot of Automan. I think it's like this idea of computer awareness is coming into the fore.
Automan is a little more prescient than we maybe give it credit for.
Yeah, and I think and also there is like this issue of why is technology always presented to people as so magical? Because Automan is a. I was trying to figure out is he a golem? Is he is he a genie? And then I was like, well, no, he's a Jungian shadow, right? He's even to the point where they actually fuse. Of course, Automan's not dark; he emits light. But he is kind of the counterpuntal device to Wally, in the sense that Automan is suave and charismatic and big, and Walter's demure and cerebral and so on. So I think there's this ocean of the dimension of psychology. I think is really important because out of the whole technology revolution is really rooted in this sort of 60s counterculture psychological movement of the human potential movement, which is Maslow and Adler and and all these people who are therapy and who advance this idea of cybernetics, right? That grafting machines into the human experience will help us to attain greater levels of authenticity and being and excitement, and all of those, and the distillate of all these very high-minded concepts about computation is ultimately Automan.
It all distills. This is the smartest our podcast has ever been.
I think it's Glenn A. Larson saying, wouldn't it be funny if a little glowing ball circled women's breasts?
Well, actually,
It can be all of those things.
When you include cursor, actually, you do get the Freudian tripartite, right? You get ego, id, which is cursor, which is the lower total. And again, like Freud even says, like the id is voiceless, like doesn't speak. It just derives. It's just eating and fucking. So it's like cursor is the id, and Automan is the superego. The manifestation of everything good and pure and noble inside Wally.
Man,
Maybe this show is actually great.
Steve's reboot of Automan is going to be amazing.
I wouldn't say it's great, but I would say like I think that's but there's this idea then I think that like it does unwittingly just through like passively absorbing what's in the culture, and this is I think what makes Larson amazing. Like, he doesn't need to understand it to be like, hey, here's the thing, you just put them together and. I made you. Yeah.
He has an understanding that these things might work together. He just
because
doesn't know why.
Because I think that's because he's just regurgitating the messages he and the rest of the public have been given about computers, and that actually the emergence of computers into society and the introduction of the internet to people was promoted as a deeply mystical experience. It was actually deeply spiritual and deeply personal, and that these machines. Were not just tools, but actually like engines of transformation for the self and the world around you. And Automan is a part of that.
I mean, I like this read on Automan. This is it works for me. It makes Automan that much more interesting now. If only it wasn't so boring sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's lots of problems in the execution. And again, and I think and the movie that does this much better is Tron. because and if Automan inherits anything, it's probably just through being a bad plagiarism of Tron, where all of this is much more clear.
That's how you know it's a Glenn A. Larson show.
Switching gears slightly, though, these two episodes, and you two may not agree with me, in some ways, I think structurally these are some of their stronger episodes in that, yes, they have the normal issues they do with an overly complicated plot, but I think the actual way the episode breaks down isn't nearly as convoluted as the previous episodes. It feels like either they stopped caring as much in these, or they just kind of eased up a little bit on how complicated everything is. But I do think it's to the show's better. Like this slight simplification of there's a guy blackmailing a woman in a band and Automan has to play guitar. Done. That's the episode. Next one, there's a guy, he needs people to build his house and Automan has to ride a motorbike. Done. They're much, much easier to explain than some of the previous episodes we've had where it's like, there's 45 things happening and none of it makes sense. And then you're like, and at the end they go, reasons, end of episode.
Was it the second episode where it's like, they think it's the judge, but it's not the judge? It's actually someone trying. It's the mafia, but not the mafia. Like a subcontingent of the mafia trying to frame the judge to force a change inside the mafia. Like, oh my god! And there's
that's what I mean.
They've stopped doing that misdirect, which they were like doing so badly, and now it's just like, this is a bad guy. Let's get him.
Yeah, I agree, and I do. Again, I think it's simplified, but I think for what this show is, which is a computer-generated sparkly guy solving crimes, I think this fits into that mold much better than overly complicated plots because they're not as high as they are, so they don't, when they fall, it's not as much of a drop, Well,
I've got a little trivia for you before we wrap this up too.
Okay.
The director of Renegade Run was a man named Alan Burns, who co-created two shows that you might know.
Golden Girls?
Okay. No.
I just get every show that was on in the 1980s.
He co-created The Munsters and The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, wow. Well, those are both two well-known shows.
And then he made a show where a biker stood on a chair and asked if there were beers on the roof.
I did want to, one last thought I had was like, Dallas is the big show right now, right? 1984. Like, everyone's watching Dallas. That's what people talk about at work. I don't know Dallas. But the thing about like land deals and trying to extort someone to sign something, was that at all Dallas-y?
I think that's certainly, I think we've seen other shows where I feel like land deals and that kind of thing was happening. I think there was an idea that land was very valuable, so that was kind of the thing. I mean, there's an entire episode of Automan where they do a parody of Dallas. Okay. So, like, that is definitely in the air, I think.
Yeah.
When we watch shows from this era, they do tend to like hit. Like, I'm surprised we haven't had an episode about oil yet, and maybe it's because it's a little too late for the oil crisis. But there was a period of time where we watched shows in the late 70s, early 80s where they'd always have an episode about oil or oil barons or something along those lines.
That's true.
So I feel like land deals is very much in that same vein for sure. At any rate, let's get into rating these episodes. Steve, we do this out of 10 stars, typical IMDb rating style. So I'll start off with Renegade Run. What are your thoughts? What do you think this is worth out of 10? And it can be your own personal opinion.
I'm going to give it a 4.5.
4.5. Very reasonable score. Jordan's shaking his head. He doesn't approve.
I'm going to give it higher than I think it deserves because for the point I mentioned earlier, let me get it straight. This is not a good show. The execution is not great. However, after watching 8 or 9 of these episodes now, I can appreciate that these are, I think, in some ways, the strongest episodes they've had in a while because of it's not as convoluted. Now, they're still boring and they're still stupid and hokey, but because of that, I'm going to raise it up. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5.
6.5?
Yeah.
No, it's impossible. You're right in that they're less convoluted. And if you're listening at home, you're right. There is an air show happening above me. But I just like Renegade Run was just like the most bring back the convoluted plots. This is just so boring to me.
No, this was much better.
2.
Oh, Luke, you're just trying to just blow us out on this one.
This is the worst one I've seen of all of Automan.
Really?
I will say, like, I watched this with my partner, and she watched the pilot, and she's like, these are like much worse, like worse in a boring way. Like I think a lot of things
just too generic.
Yeah,
but
I think I like it. I think I like them being a little more generic. I think that's what I like about it. I think when they try to get smart and complicated, it just is dumb. So like, just give me a generic episode I've seen a million times.
All right. Well, what about Murder MTV, Steve?
I'm gonna give that a 5. It was marginally better.
5.
Yeah.
Marginally better. 0.5 better.
Yeah.
I'll go next then. I'm going to be a little kinder to this one just because honestly, I kind of like they brought in an actual rock singer for this and didn't get like all like fake music this time. They didn't re-record and just like have popular music with a different singer. And the plot was so insane that I was sort of on board for it. I don't know. This one kind of worked for me. I love that the mob boss was just like, no, I can't help you anymore. I'm going to give this one a 5.
Weirdly, I know you hated the Renegades. For whatever reason, I didn't think this one was as good as the last one. I'm going to give it a 6. But it was close. 6 out of 10.
Jordan, I can never tell what you're going to do. It's great. It's any given day. It could go either way.
Yeah. They just caught me at the right time.
All right. Steve, you don't know this, or maybe you do. Automan has been really towing a line for us.
Are we
here.
warp driving?
We're going to punch into the Continuum Drag computer and see if we're taking the escape pod. So you're here for this.
Okay.
I'm almost positive we are. That 2 killed us.
I watch these episodes. I'm like, fuck, they're going to jam out on me. We're not even going to do this episode. I'm like, warp drive.
If we go, I talked with Luke about this off the air, and I'm very upset if we go because there's an episode where Automan becomes a stripper, and I don't want to miss it.
All right, let me punch these into the computer. 1 second.
Yeah, calculations must be done. If only you had an Automan to run those numbers.
If only I had my own Automan.
He'd show up and be like, I'm out of power. I'm like, why did you even show up? I used all my power on this tuxedo.
There's one point where he's talking about like the air conditioners, like it's a heat wave, and so he's like, I don't have as much power because of the people running the air conditioners at night.
Yeah, it's a real flaw.
All right, are you guys ready to hear these numbers?
Yeah.
Jordan, you've managed to hold on. The number is 5.02.
Yeah.
I should have given MTV a worse rating.
That is so close to leaving.
Oh, I can't believe I've got to watch more Automan.
Right. Okay. So the escape pod is when the ratings slip below, and then warp drive is
5, slip below 5.
Right,
Warp drive we've never used. It's
right.
it's the question. That's one we can just use anytime.
Sure.
Anytime.
Right.
I should just do it right now.
It's too late. You already punched in the numbers.
Oh my God, we're gonna watch more Automan. I can't believe it. I thought for sure we were free.
I'm sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I tried.
Well, you know what? That's a good way that if people have enjoying Automan, guess what? There's a little bit more Automan.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that wraps up for this episode. So thank you for joining us, Steve. It was a real pleasure.
It was fun.
And I think if people enjoy your conversation about Automan here, they're gonna like Androids and Assets, because you're very good at diving in deeper to like the social meaning and like the historical facts around some of the shows you watch or the books you read. So you want to tell everyone a little bit about the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, we're crap at summarizing, so we just talk about things more thematically, I think. But yeah, our tagline is the political economy of science fiction, and so that means we just want to talk about where's the money, how are the deals working, who has power, who doesn't, who gets screwed over, and how do they sort stuff out when they disagree. So yeah, we can be found. We're androidsandassets.ca, and you can find us on all the major social medias, Twitter, Facebooks. We're not on Mastodon.
We're not on Mastodon? What happened? You got kicked off?
They closed our server. No, I don't actually know how Mastodon works, but.
No, well, I think people will really enjoy it. If you like this, but you want a little more in-depth discussion about stuff, I think you'll do all right with Androids and Assets.
We have two shows. One is reviewing Deep Space Nine, which Continuum Drag was on for Civil Defense when we reviewed that. So
that was a very nice.
It's a great. Someone gave me a comment about how fun that was recently. So. I got listener feedback. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just yesterday.
Thank you, Mom.
It was not my mom. It was a friend of mine. But but yes.
Well, thank you again, Steve, for joining us.
Yeah.
And listener, you can of course email us at continuumdrag@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on Automan. If you're so happy we're gonna have to watch at least 2 more of these, I know Jordan is. You can email us there, and of course on Instagram and Twitter we're gonna have clips from the show, motorbike chases. What else, Jordan?
There's that part where he spins around on his motorbike.
Steve just mimed that for us. Great.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some guitar playing.
All the best stuff that Automan
All the
has
best
to offer.
stuff. Yep. Only the hits.
You can find that at our social media. Continuum Drag's the handle there. Until then, though, that wraps it up. So, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
See you then. Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.